We were planning our dream wedding. Then I discovered my fiancé secretly gave his brother access to my business without even telling me. He called it a gift, but what I did next destroyed their entire plan. I knew the engagement was over the moment my fiancé told me to hand over part of my boutique to his brother. Not for a loan, not for investment. Just as a gift. Like it was nothing. My name's Kaylin. I'm 32 years old and I run a boutique fashion brand in Chicago that I built from scratch. No investors, no safety net. Just grit, sleepless nights, and way too much caffeine. I started it in my cramped studio apartment, sewing until my fingers bled. Back then, I couldn't even afford a working heater. I'd literally sit on my hands between stitches just to keep my fingers warm enough to work. Now, I have 6 employees, 2 storefronts, and a small but loyal clientele that includes a few celebrities. I didn't get here by luck. I fought tooth and nail for every inch. And that's why what Tobias did felt like a slap across the face. I met Tobias about a year and a half ago. He's a high school history teacher. Calm, articulate, with this grounded energy that made me feel safe. After years of dating people who only saw me as a stepping stone or a project to fix, Tobias felt like home. He didn't care that I sometimes worked 14-hour days or that I missed holidays because of launches. In fact, he said he admired my drive. We moved in together after 8 months. 6 months later, we got engaged. Simple ring, quiet dinner, nothing flashy. It felt perfect. At first, wedding planning was smooth. I let Tobias take the lead since he actually enjoyed that kind of stuff. I just showed up when I was needed. He handled caterers, venues, seating charts. He even made a wedding playlist on Spotify. Things were good, until that night. We were at home, eating takeout on the couch. I had just come back from a long day at the shop. I was exhausted. Tobias was scrolling on his iPad, checking out honeymoon ideas. Then, out of nowhere, he said it. "Hey babe, I was talking to Jonas earlier." He began casually, like he was bringing up his fantasy football team. "And we had an idea. It might sound weird at first, but hear me out." I raised an eyebrow. Jonas, his older brother, was complicated. Charming, sure, but arrogant as hell. He always made these sly comments about my business like, "You must have had some serious luck to survive COVID." Or, "I didn't think fashion people had the brains for logistics." I never liked him, but I kept my mouth shut for Tobias' sake. Tobias continued, "What if you gave Jonas a small stake in your boutique?" I laughed, thinking he was joking. He didn't laugh back. "I mean," he went on, "not like controlling interest or anything, just enough to feel included. You know, symbolic. A way to welcome him into the family." I froze. "You want me to give part of my business to Jonas?" I asked, blinking. "It would mean a lot to him," Tobias said, like this was a birthday card or something. "He's been trying to get into something meaningful. He's got great ideas, and you two could totally collaborate." I cut him off. "Number absolutely not." Tobias looked taken aback. "Babe, it's not a big deal. It's just a gesture. He's family. We're all about to be one big family, right?" Something inside me snapped. "This isn't a board game, Tobias. I didn't roll the dice and land on give your brother a business share. This is my life, my work. Jonas has never supported me. He's mocked me, belittled my work, and now I'm supposed to hand over part of it? Why would you even suggest that?" Tobias looked genuinely confused. "Because he's my brother. He's struggling, and you're doing great. Why not share the success? Isn't that what family does?" "No," I said, standing up. "That's what leeches do." He flinched at that. I didn't care. I left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. I hoped that would be the end of it. I thought maybe Tobias got caught up in guilt or sibling pressure and would drop it once he realized how serious I was. But the next day proved me wrong. I was at the shop, organizing inventory, when Jonas called me out of the blue. "Kaylin," he said cheerfully, "I just wanted to say thanks for agreeing to the stake. I already started looking into some branding ideas, so I'll send over a proposal this week." I dropped the scanner I was holding. "I didn't agree to anything," I said, cold and flat. There was a long pause. Then Jonas let out a short laugh like I was being difficult. "Tobias said it was a done deal," he replied. "He told me to start prepping." I didn't respond. I hung up. When I got home that evening, Tobias was cooking dinner like everything was normal. I didn't even wait for him to finish sautéing whatever was in the pan. "You told Jonas I agreed to give him part of my boutique?" I asked. He paused. "I just figured once you calmed down, you'd see it was a good idea." I said no, Tobias. That was my answer. He looked frustrated. "I was trying to make it easier for everyone. You're so focused on being in control that you don't see how this could actually help your business. Jonas has connections. He could—" "This isn't about connections," I snapped. "It's about you going behind my back. You lied to your brother. You tried to corner me into saying yes by making it sound like a done deal." "Because you're not listening," he shouted, slamming the pan onto the stove. "You never compromise. It's always your way. Maybe if you cared about this marriage as much as your boutique, you'd actually try. My chest tightened. You're seriously comparing the relationship I've built with my business, one that took me years to grow, to a marriage where you just tried to manipulate me? He didn't answer. He just turned back to the stove, his jaw clenched. And that was when I knew this wasn't just one bad conversation. This was a preview of my future. But the worst part? I hadn't even seen the real betrayal yet. Because 2 days later, something arrived in my email that made my blood run cold. It was a scanned legal draft from Jonas, titled Preliminary Ownership Transfer Agreement, 12% Equity in Kalen Studios. I sat there staring at the email, my hands trembling over the keyboard. The subject line was blunt and cold. Draft ownership transfer, Kalen Studios, 12% equity. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was real. Jonas had sent me a professionally written legal document, complete with clauses, signatures, and a projected implementation timeline. And worst of all, it had Tobias's name already printed on the last page, right next to a blank space for my signature. I didn't even realize I'd stopped breathing until one of my employees, Dana, walked by and asked if I was okay. I quickly clicked out of the screen and muttered something about a supplier issue. But inside, I was spiraling. This wasn't just a red flag anymore. It was a flashing neon sign telling me to run. I left work early and drove home in silence. The city buzzed around me like normal, but inside my car, everything was still. I wasn't angry. Not yet. What I felt was deeper, heavier, betrayal. I had given Tobias every part of myself, my time, my trust, my love. I believed he respected me, that he saw me, but now I realized he didn't respect my business. He saw it as something to be handed out like a wedding favor. When I got home, he was already there, sipping wine and watching a documentary like nothing had happened. I didn't say anything. I opened my laptop, pulled up the email, and wordlessly turned it toward him. He glanced at it, then back at me. Oh, he said, like I'd just shown him a grocery list. So, you saw it? That was it. That was his reaction. No apology, no explanation, no regret. I told Jonas not to send it until we talked again, he added, like that somehow made it better. He just got excited. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Excited? Tobias, he sent me a legal draft. You told him I agreed when I didn't. You went behind my back again. Do you even hear yourself? He set down his glass and leaned forward. Kalen, listen. This could be huge for us. Jonas has a background in small business. He knows how to scale, how to find investors. You're thinking emotionally right now, but long-term, I cut him off. Number, you don't get to frame this as a business decision. This isn't about strategy. This is about you lying to me. Again. He stood up, looking exasperated. You always do this. You turn everything into a betrayal the moment it's not exactly what you want. My jaw clenched. No, Tobias. I turn it into a betrayal when you betray me. He rolled his eyes. So what now? You're going to break up with me over this? I didn't answer. You know what your problem is? He snapped. You're so used to doing everything alone, you've forgotten how to let anyone in. Maybe if you actually trusted people, you wouldn't be so paranoid. I felt my throat tighten. Not from fear. From the sheer audacity of what he was saying. I trusted you, I said quietly. And you used that trust to pitch my company like it was a birthday present? He didn't respond. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid awake staring at the ceiling, remembering all the little things I'd ignored. The way Tobias never asked questions about my work, never showed up to any of my pop-ups or shows. The way he laughed when I called myself a CEO. How he always changed the subject when I talked about growth. It hit me then. He didn't love me. He loved what I'd built. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Not for a lawsuit, not yet. I just needed to know what protections I had. What lines couldn't be crossed. Delaney, my longtime legal consultant and friend, picked up right away. When I told her what happened, she didn't even try to mask her disgust. He sent what? Without your consent? Girl, this isn't just unethical. It's potentially fraudulent. Don't sign anything. And Kalen, lock everything down. Change your passwords. Update your internal access controls. Right now. I nodded through the phone, heart pounding. And that's what I did. I spent the next 6 hours locking down my company like it was under siege. Removed shared Dropbox folders Tobias had access to. Revoked admin rights on my CRM. Even changed the code on the back office door. I wasn't going to let anyone touch what I'd built. By the time I got home that night, Tobias was waiting for me in the living room, looking sheepish. I think we got off on the wrong foot, he said. No, I replied. I think I saw you clearly for the first time. He stood, walking over, lowering his voice like I was a frightened child. Can we just talk? Like really talk? Without the dramatics? The dramatics? I repeated. You mean like sending a contract for 12% of my company to your brother behind my back? That kind of dramatic? He didn't answer. I want to cancel the engagement, I said. His face went blank. You don't mean that. I do. I've already told my family. he said, suddenly defensive. We booked the venue. My mom's been working on the centerpieces. I stared at him in disbelief. And none of that matters if the groom thinks he's entitled to carve up the bride's business like wedding cake. He looked down, then back up. You're going to regret this. I shook my head. No, Tobias. I regret not seeing this sooner. And just like that, I walked into our bedroom, pulled out the ring box from the drawer, and left it on the kitchen counter. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stopped. I stayed at Delaney's place that night. She poured me wine and let me crash on her couch, no questions asked. But when I woke up the next morning, everything changed. Because on my boutique's business page, on a public forum that clients, collaborators, and even media outlets follow, there was a brand new post, posted by Jonas. It read, "Exciting things coming soon. Can't wait to bring new leadership energy to Kalen Studios. Next chapter, our family business." I thought I'd hit rock bottom when I canceled our engagement. I was wrong. Because waking up to a public announcement on my boutique's official business page, posted by Jonas, claiming he was bringing in new leadership energy, wasn't just humiliating. It was war. I couldn't breathe when I saw it. He posted it at 6:03 a.m., and by 7:15, I had 5 missed calls from clients and 2 emails from press contacts asking for quotes. One of the messages read, "Congrats on the expansion. Will Jonas be doing interviews soon?" I wanted to scream, cry, throw my laptop out the window. But I didn't. I grabbed my coat, got in the car, and drove to the boutique like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. By the time I walked through the front door, Dana was already holding up her phone. "Kalen, what's going on?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. "People are asking questions, and Jonas just called here. He said he's your new business partner." My heart dropped. "He what?" "He wanted access to the back office login. Said you'd approved it. I didn't give him anything, I swear." I nodded quickly, already unlocking the laptop at the front desk. I jumped onto the admin dashboard. Thank God, I still had full control. Jonas hadn't hacked in. Yet. But how the hell had he even gotten access to Post? And then I saw it. He'd been added manually as a marketing collaborator from Tobias's IP address, not even 24 hours before I ended things. Meaning Tobias had given him access, before he knew I'd walk away. I was shaking. This wasn't just a boundary cross. This was theft. Public, deliberate, reputational theft. I deleted the post, removed Jonas's access, reposted a formal message that said, "There has been a false claim made regarding changes to Kalen Studios. There is no new leadership, no new ownership, and no planned restructuring. Any statements to the contrary are fraudulent. Thank you to our loyal clients for your patience and support." Within 10 minutes, Jonas messaged me. "Wow, overreact much? That was just PR hype. You didn't have to throw a tantrum." I didn't respond. But then, not 30 minutes later, Tobias showed up at the boutique. I didn't even know how he knew I was there. Maybe he guessed. Maybe he stalked my location. I honestly wouldn't be surprised anymore. He walked in like he owned the place, shoulders back, face smug. "Hey," he said, like he hadn't just shattered my world. I stood behind the counter, arms crossed. "You need to leave." "Kalen, come on. That post wasn't a big deal. Jonas was just trying to drum up excitement. It was good publicity." He called my staff. "Tobias. He told Dana he was my business partner." Tobias didn't even flinch. He just got ahead of himself. You could have handled it quietly. Now everyone thinks you're unstable. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because I couldn't believe the sheer level of gaslighting happening in front of me. "You seriously think I'm the problem here?" Tobias stepped closer. "Kalen, you're spiraling. Look, maybe you were right. Maybe the steak idea was too much. But this?" He gestured to the empty store like it was proof. "You're overreacting, and you're making yourself look unprofessional." Unprofessional. That word hit me like a slap. I had spent the last 7 years building a brand based on integrity, independence, and passion. And this man, this ex-fiancé, was standing here accusing me of being unprofessional because I dared to defend it. I could feel the rage bubbling under my skin. "You don't get to come here and lecture me," I said, voice steady but trembling. "You and your brother violated every line I ever drew. You manipulated, lied, and tried to steal credit for something I built with my own 2 hands." Tobias raised his hands like he was being reasonable. "I was trying to help, but go ahead. Burn it all down if that's what makes you feel powerful." That was it. The final confirmation. He never saw me as an equal, never respected the work I put in. He just wanted to control it. Control me. "Get out," I said, pointing at the door. "Don't come back here again. Ever." He scoffed but didn't fight it. Just smirked and walked out. I locked the door behind him, and for the first time in weeks, I cried. Not because I was weak, but because I had held it in for too long. And just when I thought the nightmare might finally start to fade, it got worse. That evening, Dana forwarded me an email she'd received anonymously through our boutique contact form. It included 3 things. 1, a blurry photo of me crying at my desk. 2, a screenshot of Tobias's name on an early business license from 4 years ago, something I had never seen before. 3, a one-line message. You sure you own this place alone? I stared at the screen, heart racing. I had never put Tobias on anything official. We weren't even dating 4 years ago. I didn't even know him. So what the hell was this document? I called Delaney immediately. She pulled up public business filings for the city, and that's when she found it. 4 years ago, someone filed a Kalin Designs LLC with Tobias's name listed as co-founder. Same business category. Same mailing address as my first apartment. But I had never filed that LLC. My actual boutique, Kalin Studios LLC, wasn't created until a year later, with me as the sole founder. Delaney's voice was calm but tight. Kalin, this looks like an old shadow LLC. He created it before you launched. If he tries to say your current business is a rebrand or a continuation of this, he might be preparing a legal claim for partial ownership. I stared at my screen, unable to speak, because the truth was suddenly horrifyingly clear. Tobias had been planning this from the very beginning. The moment Delaney told me about the shadow LLC Tobias had registered years ago, something in me shifted. I wasn't scared anymore. I was done. Done playing polite. Done second-guessing myself. Done letting a man smile in my face while stabbing me in the back. If Tobias wanted war, he just picked the wrong woman to fight. I spent the next 2 hours with Delaney dissecting every filing, every timestamp, every possible loophole Tobias might try to exploit. Luckily, she's the kind of friend who doesn't flinch when it gets ugly. She just sharpened her claws. Here's the good news, she said, tapping her screen. Your actual LLC was filed a full year after his, but the EIN number, website domain, inventory receipts, tax filings, and payment processors all trace back to you. His company never did a single transaction. She leaned back, eyes cold. That tells me he didn't create it as a business. He created it as a trap, just in case he ever needed leverage over you later. My stomach turned. It was so calculated, so disgustingly manipulative. And I almost married this man. Legally, he doesn't have a leg to stand on, Delaney continued. But public opinion? That's a different battlefield. If he takes the story to the wrong ears, even implied ownership could cause reputational damage. That's when the idea hit me. A plan. Not just to defend myself, but to flip the entire narrative. First, I took back control of the story. I wrote a blog post. Not a rage post. Not a smear campaign. A carefully worded, professionally toned entry titled, What It Means to Build Something Alone, and Why I'll Keep Defending It. I didn't mention Tobias or Jonas by name. I didn't need to. I let the facts speak. As a woman who started her business with nothing but a sewing machine and a fire in her chest, I've learned that success invites opportunists. Not everyone who claps for you wants you to win. Some just want to stand close enough to claim they helped. The post went viral within hours. Designers, entrepreneurs, and even former clients flooded the comments with support. Some even shared their own stories of being used by partners, exes, or so-called friends who felt entitled to their hard work. But I wasn't done. I called a meeting with my staff the next morning. Dana, Maria, everyone. I told them the truth. Every detail, every betrayal, and asked them to stand with me, but also offered a way out if things got messy. No one left. Instead, Dana said, let's show them what a woman-owned business really looks like when it fights back. I nearly cried. Then came phase 2, evidence. Delaney and I combed through every message Tobias had sent during our engagement, emails, texts, voice memos. And it was all there. His manipulation, his false promises, his explicit admission that Jonas wouldn't be involved unless Kalin gave the green light. Even better, one of my employees had recorded a call with Jonas, without prompting, when he called pretending to be a co-owner. In that call, Jonas said, Tobias said I'd have access by next week. Kalin won't say no. She's emotional, not strategic. That sentence was gold. Not just legally, but publicly. Because the moment Delaney sent that to our PR advisor, we had a plan for exposure. Phase 3? I went to the city licensing board. I submitted a formal complaint about a fraudulent LLC registered using my business name, address, and trade description. Then I forwarded the same to the Better Business Bureau. It might take weeks for the filings to process. But Tobias had no idea I'd moved so fast. Which is why, when he sent me a cease and desist letter accusing me of defaming his legal stake in the company, I just smiled. And I sent back a polite one-line email. Thank you for your letter. Kindly forward all future communication to my attorney. But the twist? That came 2 days later. It started when one of my longtime clients, an editor at a major fashion magazine, called me out of the blue. She said, I just got a message from Jonas, asking if I'd like to feature his new line under Kalin and Company. I assumed this was a rebrand? My blood ran cold. Excuse me? I said. She forwarded the message. Sure enough, Jonas had created a new Instagram page, slapped my name on it, uploaded photos from my previous runway show, and started contacting clients, claiming he was the lead designer now. I don't even remember standing up from my desk. I was already dialing Delaney. This wasn't just overstepping. This was identity theft, business impersonation, copyright violation, a felony. We sent takedown notices to Instagram, to hosting sites. We drafted a cease and desist so brutal it would make a corporate lawyer cry. And just when I thought Jonas couldn't get any dumber, he responded. In an email CC'd to me, Tobias, and one of my clients, Jonas wrote, "Don't forget, I've got copies of your designs from the night Tobias let me into your home office. Maybe I'll just call them inspired pieces." That was the moment I stopped breathing. Because there it was. The smoking gun. He admitted in writing that he accessed my private designs without my knowledge, that Tobias let him in. I forwarded the email to Delaney with a single line. Let's finish this. Because now it wasn't just emotional revenge. It was legal. 2 weeks after Jonas sent that email admitting he'd stolen my designs, I walked into Delaney's office with a calm I hadn't felt in months. She already had the legal documents printed and ready. Infringement, attempted fraud, business impersonation, defamation, and theft of intellectual property, she said, tapping the folders. You've got everything you need to bury them. You ready? I nodded. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood. Justice isn't about hurting them. It's about protecting yourself. Delaney filed the lawsuit the same day, and as expected, things unraveled fast. First, Jonas's fake Instagram page was wiped from the internet within 48 hours. Next, the city's licensing department flagged his LLC application and launched an internal investigation. Turns out, he used a fake lease agreement with my old apartment address to register the shell company. Fraudulent on multiple levels. Then came the cease and desist notices to clients he'd contacted under my name. One after another, my clients sent in screenshots, emails, voice recordings, proof that Jonas and Tobias had deliberately tried to exploit my brand. And when we served them the formal complaint, Tobias tried to play the misunderstood ex-fiancé card. He emailed Delaney saying, "Kaylin is blowing this out of proportion. I was just trying to help Jonas get back on his feet. She's acting emotionally." Delaney, bless her heart, responded with 6 attachments, all labeled evidence of collusion and unauthorized access. He went silent after that. A month later, I stood outside the courthouse watching Jonas walk out the front doors with his head down. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. The court had issued an emergency injunction banning him from using my name, likeness, or any derivative of my business in any form, online or off. He was also ordered to pay a settlement for damages. It wasn't a life-ruining amount, but it was enough to sting. As for Tobias, his school found out. Apparently, some concerned parent forwarded screenshots from his now-deleted Reddit account where he'd bragged about leveraging his fiancé's success to create family equity. He was placed on indefinite administrative leave. The last time I saw him, he was outside the boutique. He stood across the street just staring. I didn't wave. I didn't say a word. I just looked at him like he was a stranger, because that's all he was now. Not the man I fell for. Not the partner I once pictured a life with. Just a man who saw me shining and thought he could steal the light. I rebuilt slowly after that. Some clients hesitated at first, unsure what had really happened. But once the truth came out, and it did, the support came pouring back. I hired a PR team, rebranded slightly, made my story part of the narrative, not the victim, not the drama, the woman who defended what she built. Now, when people ask how I bounce back after everything, I smile, because I didn't just bounce back. I stood up, looked betrayal in the face, and said, "You don't get to write the ending." I do. And here's what I've learned. If someone loves you, they'll protect what matters to you, not plot how to take it. Real love never asks you to shrink. And real power? It's knowing when to walk away and when to fight like hell for what's yours. If you've ever had someone try to claim credit for your success or pressure you into sacrificing what you worked for, you're not alone. I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Who tried to take your light, and how did you take it back? And if you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this, because some stories aren't fiction. They're warnings.